Thank you so much for watching my show, William Wallace for America. In this segment, you're going to find that I'm bringing on an organization that helps veterans. As you're going to hear in this series of interviews that I'm going to be doing with this episode, you'll find that my mission is to help veterans any way I can. Our veterans are always out there for our freedoms and liberties, and we don't realize how small of a percentage of our country actually signs their name on the line, giving up their life, their freedoms, and their liberties for our country to fight for ours. And you've heard of the stories I've told on my show where our soldiers, our infantrymen, our sailors, our military have given up their rights in a lot of ways. That's not this conversation. This conversation is, in this series of interviews, is because we have organizations out there in America that are helping our veterans in a lot of different ways. I'm still amazed how many different organizations are out there. That's why I'm going to bring them to you. And in this interview, my guest is Fisher House, Wisconsin, which you're going to hear more about from the executive director of the Wisconsin location on how they're helping veterans, and you'll find out how you can help veterans with them. Either way, Stephen Rose, thank you so much for joining my show. I appreciate you being here.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to come on and talk about an organization that I care very deeply about, that I believe is doing a wonderful job here taking care of our veterans and their families.
So, Stephen, tell me, what is Fisher House on a national level, and then why is there a Fisher House, Wisconsin? Let's let the audience know what you guys do for veterans.
Yeah. So for your audience members that are unfamiliar with what a Fisher House is, it's a comfort home. So it's very similar to another national organization, but think a home away from home for veterans, families, and friends who are coming in from out of town, out of state, that want to be a caregiver and support their veteran receiving care either at or coordinated through the VA. So we do free lodging, food support systems to make sure that families and friends can focus on what really matters, which is their loved one, their veteran, receiving care, getting them happy, healthy, and back home.
So basically, it's kind of like a hotel with free food.
A little bit nicer than a hotel. I promise you that.
Really?
The houses are they're immaculate. The house that we host here in Milwaukee was about $7.8 million. It's 14,000 square feet. So it's top end. Zachary and Elizabeth Fisher were the initial founders of the program, and they were people of means. So the sentiment is that if they weren't able to open their house for veterans' families traveling to take care of their veteran, they were going to build them a house like theirs. So it's high end everything. We've got walls of Sub-Zero refrigerators, granite countertops, slate floors, top of the line, everything for these families. And it's something that we're proud to be able to host them in.
Where was the first Fisher House?
So it was actually at Bethesda in Maryland. So the whole story started back in the early 90s, and Zachary and Elizabeth were traveling, and they were the key guest of Admiral Trost. And the Admiral's wife pulled Zachary's wife aside and said, we have a problem, and I think you can help us solve it one day. And it eventually ended up with Zachary standing in front of Congress, announcing that, hey, there's this gap. We need some way to fix it. And I'm a builder. He was founder of Fisher Brothers Construction, and decided that, I'm going to go ahead and fund these houses to make sure that our families are able to be there for their veteran, and that veterans have that support system. So they actually funded the first 20 houses out of their own pocket before ever standing up that national foundation. And it's happy to say that, we're quickly on the road to 100 houses around the entire world. That includes 2 in Germany, 1 in England. And they're scattered all over across major medical centers through the VA and active DoD installations right now.
So exactly who was Zachary Fisher? Was he somebody that, was he just his brother was a contractor, but what was he doing at the time that he was approached with the need?
So a lot of it started when he was actually approached with the idea of the Intrepid Center, or the Intrepid Museum. The Intrepid Museum.
Okay.
So the USS Intrepid obviously was a former naval battleship that was getting ready to be decommissioned. And, he was at a fundraiser to help save it and restore it. And, like many fundraisers, everybody goes because it's a good cause. Everybody gets up, leaves, and Zachary's just sitting there waiting at the table. And, the gentleman who was there hosting said, "Oh, like, thanks so much for coming out." And Zach just looks at him and goes, well, when do we get started on this? And he goes, "Well, I don't know if you heard, but we need to raise, X millions of dollars." And he goes, "Well, I didn't ask you that." He goes, "When do we get started?" And it grew from there that he became more and more involved in veterans philanthropies and charities and giving back and taking care of, what he always referred to as America's greatest national treasure, which is our veterans and their families. And through that, he was exposed to a family coming off of a helicopter, rushing into a hospital. And, the admiral's wife kind of wondered, well, I don't know where they're staying because we don't really have hotels. We don't have a place for them. And he decided that this is a demonstrated problem, and I have means to fix this. So I'm going to go ahead and fix this. And he started building Fisher houses one by one, wherever he was allowed to, where there was a demonstrated need.
So, two things. One, I guess in layman's terms, from what I'm understanding is, wherever the veteran may be, and y'all build these houses wherever there might be a VA hospital, there might be some sort of treatment center, or maybe it's just a city with a high amount of veterans in their population. You guys build a house that has multiple rooms like a hotel where people can say, okay, they normally live in maybe California, but their son is in Bethesda, or he's in from whatever, maybe he's at the hospital, maybe he's active duty. I guess this applies to active duty or retired veterans, right?
That is correct.
So as long as you're a veteran or in the military or actually active duty, correct?
That is correct. The program was born through the DoD, so supporting active servicemen and women. Obviously, as we're starting to age as a veteran population, there's becoming more of us in active duty servicemen. So we've kind of branched off, and we've been building more and more along the lines of at VA medical centers now.
So basically you all said, hey, look, we have family that might not be able to afford long periods of stay. We have families that, they just, they need to have a place that's more like a home than a hotel, whatever the case may be. You all want to have a comfortable place where they can stay for free, and that way it helps them and not have a burden on them. Is that correct?
That's exactly it. You hit the nail on your head with home, because it truly is a home.
Well, I want to hit the nail on my head. I want to hit the nail on the head in the wood.
Yeah, because it truly is a home away from home. The homes they're typically around 16 private family suites. It's about 14,000 square feet. So it's enough to where you're having breakfast and coffee and conversation with families going through a similar thing every single morning. And you're not having that unfamiliarity of, strangers and feeling disconnected and like it's just a hotel almost. The whole purpose, everybody always wants to think that it's about the lodging, but a lot of it's about the community and giving people a community to be comfortable in and cared for and feel like they have a support system while they're going through that family medical emergency. Because a lot of our families, while there are many scheduled appointments and procedures, we do get quite a few families that come in through a traumatic injury, either something neurological or a cardiac event. And for them, this is one of the worst days of my life. I don't know where I'm staying. I don't know how I'm going to afford any of this. And that's where we get to step up and really care for those caregivers and be that home away from home to make sure that they are there to take care of their loved one and make sure their veteran is receiving quality care.
Does Fisher House offer any sort of emotional support? Do you all have psychologists, therapists? Obviously, you have food resources. I'm sure that's if you say house, I'm sure there's kitchen. I'm sure there's food. Maybe there's cooks. I don't know. What type of support do you all offer other than just a place to stay and food?
Yeah. So, when it comes to the food, I do want to say, I try to make sure that it's stocked completely full of nourishing, good, quality food. We do grab and go subs and lunches for our families. Anything to take care of their sustenance need, because if you've ever been that family in a medical emergency, the last person you're caring about is yourself. You'll go a day or two without eating. So we're trying to make sure that they're taking care of themselves. That way they can be there fully. On top of that, every type of patient care advocacy program through the VA is going to be available to our families. As well, here in Milwaukee, we just recently set up through a holistic wellness business right adjacent to the VA here. We offer things like ionic foot baths, deep tissue massage, aromatherapy, Reiki. It's anything that family needs, because
Sounds like a spa.
so that's what I want to be able to offer. Some of our families are staying with us, on average for about 5 days. We've had families stay upwards of 90 days consecutively, and that's quite normal. So who am I to tell a mom or a dad or a son or a daughter how to find respite in their time of need when they get 1 day off? So anything within reason that they want to do or that they need, my job is to figure out how to fix that emotional or financial burden to where they can really focus on what is important, which is their veteran receiving world-class care coordinated at either at or coordinated through the VA.
Sounds like part hotel, part spa, part restaurant, and part concierge service. Is there some sort of, I guess, if you're the director of this house, it sounds like there might be like some sort of built-in concierge service where if somebody says, hey, I'm here, I need this, a repair on my iPhone, or so, I mean, I'm of course I'm just making that up, but I mean, there's a family that's in need. They're out, they're from out of town, they're out of their element, they're someplace where they've never been. They just need resources other than financial direction, items. Do you all also offer that?
Absolutely. So it gets quite cold here in Milwaukee in the wintertime. And every now and then we have families come up from, Florida, South Carolina, the South, where they go, oh, it's cold up there, but they don't realize how cold it gets. So they come up for, what's supposed to be a weekend procedure, and then they end up staying for 2-3 months and, don't have a winter jacket, don't have hats, gloves, anything we can do to allow that family to spend more time with their veteran rather than standing in line at Target at the end of a 10-hour day. We're going to go ahead and do that and take care of that need for a family.
I love this. Okay, here's a big question. Before I ask the question, I want to say this. I know, right? Almost a teaser, but I'm going backwards a little bit. I think that organizations like this are so important for our veterans, not just because of the obvious, but also because I think all too often we lose people that would want to serve our country, would want to be in the military, but they witness firsthand how our government treats our veterans once they get out. And I'm not pulling any punches here. Our veterans deserve better than what they're getting. Granted, they got the VA hospital, but I mean, though, to get the good ones, there, you got to travel far and wide, which I'm sure it sounds like you're there for them on that when at the Fisher House. However, they don't have many support services. And I'm not going back on what I'm saying, but I know that through the VA, there's counseling and there's different types of things. But, and while that seems like a lot, we don't realize how many other little nooks and crannies and cracks and holes and crevices that our veterans are falling through where they're not getting the services that they need from our government. And I'm finding, it's why I'm doing this series, there are a lot of organizations like yours that are fulfilling all these different needs. Like there was another organization that I'm gonna bring on my show, like that I met there in Wisconsin too, that they're building tiny homes for veterans. And so there's a lot of different things like that. I'll bring them on later, but that's why I think that putting the spotlight on organizations like yours is so important. Now, speaking of that spotlight, I'm with the spotlight on you with that question that I delayed for a second, which is, where do y'all get all the money to do all this? How do y'all fund yourselves? Is this part government, part donation? How do you all offer these services?
So Zach and Elizabeth made it very, very, very clear. We wanted to build something of extreme quality. And in order to do that, it takes a lot, and in our case, exclusively private funding. So there's no tax dollars that go into any of the bills. There's no tax dollars that go into stocking the groceries. Nobody gets to tell us how we want to support our families because we bring our own private funding directly to the table. So it's completely gifts, grants, donations from the good of the community. And the way I always explain it to people is that it's your way of loving on and thanking a veteran who's taken that uniform off. It's your way of saying thank you and giving them that support system and giving them a reason to get that high quality VA coordinated or high quality healthcare coordinated through their VA.
Are you a veteran or are you a passionate American who just cares about our veterans this much that you're gonna I mean, being an executive director of a nonprofit, is not a job you're going to get rich on. It's a job that is usually comes from service. So I'm just curious, did you serve in the military or are you serving our veterans?
So I did serve in the United States Air Force. I used to tell people all the time that was the greatest thing I would ever do, and I loved every moment of it. That has quickly been surpassed with my time with various roles in Fisher House. I always joke and tell people I sleep very well at night, and I don't know if it's because of the mission or because I'm so tired, but it is very much the most rewarding thing I've ever done, and I really truly can't see myself doing anything different.
I absolutely love it. So so you told me how you fund through private donations, that you're 100% private, you're not connected to tax dollars. Can you give me any examples of what people can do to help Fisher House? Obviously, you're Fisher House, Wisconsin. So do they donate directly to the each of the 100 locations, or do they just donate to the national organization? Or because we're interviewing you, here for Wisconsin Fisher House on my show, do they want to just say, hey, we saw that guy Stephen Rose with Wisconsin Fisher House, and we really want to focus on that one?
If everybody wants to donate to Fisher House, Wisconsin, I would absolutely welcome it and appreciate it. And, you'll get your signed letter directly from me with a little note thanking you. But I just want people to get involved with their local community, really. It's looking to see if there's a Fisher House around you. There's 97 of them now here across the United States, in the continental United States, and it's only going to get bigger. There's definitely multiple ways. If you donate to Fisher House Foundation, you can go ahead and restrict your gifts for your local state to help, support houses in your local area, or directly donate to one of the friends group like Fisher House Wisconsin.
Well, or in this recommendation, it would be donate a little bit to the Wisconsin one because that's who is on the show, and then they can donate to the national one because they might want to help out in other ways. I'm in Louisiana. I'd love to get a list of the ones in Louisiana.
Yeah, there's off the top of my head, one for sure. A second one is on the way. I want to say it's Baton, New Orleans, and then I want to say Shreveport is getting a house as well. So, there's plenty of great community friends groups, which is what Fisher House Wisconsin is. My goal is completely supporting the funding of construction and then operation of houses here in Wisconsin. The national organization, they pick up where there's slack left off, kind of in terms of not great local funding. We're building houses in Puerto Rico. They've built houses in Maine, not necessarily communities that can raise $10 million. So that's why we're really proud of what we're doing here in Wisconsin is, not only are we taking care of our veterans and their families right here receiving world-class healthcare in our backyard, but we're ensuring that individuals and groups can have that same thing in a community where, funding necessarily wouldn't be as easy.
Absolutely love it. Stephen, I can't tell you how thankful and grateful I am to have that you came on the show today to let us know about Fisher House, Wisconsin. And I'm hopeful that we'll get some donations for you from people who saw this interview, and hopefully we'll stay in touch. And please send me a list of those houses in Louisiana, because I would absolutely love to help any way I can in my home state as well as on a national level.
I love hearing that. I will absolutely send that over your way, and I'll definitely be keeping tabs on you and staying in contact. Again, thank you so much for the opportunity to come on to your lovely show and talk about a mission that I love.
Thank you so much, Stephen. Hang on 1 second. And while I encourage everybody to please go visit FisherHouseWI.org to find out more about it, see how you can help. And thank you so much. And pay attention for the next interview on how we can help veterans. Have a great day. Switch your cell phone service to a company that loves America as much as you do. Patriot Mobile believes in the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, all of our constitutional rights, first responders, our military, and pro-life issues. Get the same or better coverage, comparable rates, and if you use the promo code WWFA by going to patriotmobile.com/WWFA, you're going to get some discounts and some secret surprises. I say it that way to make you go there, and please find it as a way to support my show by going to patriotmobile.com/WWFA. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for staying tuned in this episode of my show, William Wallace for America, where I am bringing on veterans organizations or organizations that are related to veterans to be able to find ways to help veterans after service. And the reason, as you know, that I'm doing that, as I've said before, is that we need to show our veterans that we support them not only while they're in service, but once they get out of service, which is one of the most important times. And with me right now is someone who's not only a veteran, but somebody who is helping other veterans be able to continue their careers in other ways via podcasting. Jame Van Prooyen, thank you so much for staying on with me. I appreciate you being here today.
Thank you, William. My pleasure. This is pretty cool because I've known you for a while and met you through podcasting. That was how we got started with our friendship. So
absolutely. Well, I bet you at Podfest, we were just talking about that. When is Podfest? You've got this event coming up. Let's get right to that for just a second. Then we're going to talk about what you are doing with your way to help veterans, we'll say, because you don't have a typical organization like some veterans organizations, but you're doing something to help veterans. When is the event?
So we're doing Military Creator Con. We have a kickoff event happening the night of the 15th, and then the 16th, from roughly 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. We're going to have sessions related to things and tools and resources and advice and things like that for military creators of all sorts.
So basically, you're taking people that were veterans in the military that want to be able to create via a podcast in some way, shape, or form, and you're going to be able, and you're showing them not only how to do it, showing them how to get the tools to do it, and be able to do it in a way that they can continue their passion of creating after they've got out of the military. Is that kind of what the synopsis of it is?
A little bit. I mean, and it's bigger than just podcasting. Is as cool as it is with, as I call, new media, right? Not just podcasting, but the things that are able to get people, amplifies people's messages and the things that they're involved with. As a creator, the kind of the new creator economy that has developed somewhat relatively recently, right? And is somewhat the future, helping facilitate, not just for veterans, really anyone that's in and around the veteran space or works with veterans or wants to work with military and veterans. So it's just anybody kind of, and even on the entrepreneurship side, there's some pretty unique things that people are creating and doing that are military veterans as well, or military members or veterans. So this spouses, so it's not just everybody underneath that big, so decent size umbrella, if that makes sense.
So were you finding that there was I guess a population of veterans who wanted to be able to, who get out of the military and they want to find a way to be able to create something, and that is a way for them to be able to maybe get beyond whatever experience they had in the military? I mean, look, most veterans have enjoyed their time in service, but some veterans find it's difficult after service in whatever way might be that they have a hard time adjusting to civilian life. Maybe it's PTSD, maybe whatever the case may be, or maybe they had a positive experience and they don't have any problem at all, but they want to be able to continue being productive. Are you saying that in any one of those, I guess, categories or descriptions, you're able to take a veteran and show them how to create a podcast, how to create content, and be able to show them how to do it in a way that they don't have to learn how to do it themselves? Is that what you're doing?
Yes, definitely that, but more than that, even if someone's already doing and knows how to do a lot of it, like what are some ways that people are doing it at another level? So wherever, we kind of meet people where they're at. So they'll be, if someone's just beginning or has an idea, thinks they know what they want to do, but doesn't know how to do it yet. It's things like that. Are you still there by chance?
Absolutely. I was giving you the whole stage there to talk while you're at it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Like I'm sorry. Hopefully this can get it out.
It flashed a little bit. Sorry there. I caught you by surprise. So continue what you're saying.
So yeah, it kind of meets the person where they're at. If a person's just getting started, doesn't know where to start or anywhere they're on, even take, for instance, yourself. You've already come to a certain level, but then you're going to be, if you came and you're attending, which you will be there, it's what tools and resources and ideas and things, if you're around other people that are creative people, what is other people doing that, can take it to the next level, whatever that next level is for the different people that are in attendance. So there'll be something for everyone.
Basically, what you do as an organization is you meet them where they are, you find out what they need to get to the next level, and you take it from there. Because some people need business coaches, or maybe they need some sort of extra training, but you're trying to offer some sort of, maybe I would say, a discounted service, but a service to where is there a charge for it? Will you charge them, or is this something that you're just trying to do to help veterans?
It's definitely for profit. It's a conference based community, but also a community at the same time as well. Just to have a place where, so a lot of times too, if you talk about business and entrepreneurship, right, it can be lonely. You feel like you're doing it kind of all by yourself or in a vacuum. So we're bringing everybody together once a year, at least, into one room for networking, for collaborations. So there's a lot of things that we'll offer, but also in between, there'll be, companies and resources and things that we're facilitating for people to get what they need, all kind of in one place.
But you're not asking necessarily for buy-ins for each veteran, because if it's to be a conference, you might have sponsors, you might be able to get sponsorships, you might be, either way, it is a way you're doing an event, if you will, to be able to bring the resources together along with the people to do the networking. Correct?
Correct. And also, I really, in the near future, want to do it to where we do in-person, smaller, not events necessarily, but meetups and get-togethers in different areas, and bring military creators together in these different communities around, not just in the U.S., but the world.
You want this to be more than just a once a year thing. You want this to be something where you build a net, you're using your talents in this space and bringing people together. You want to be able to create not only a resource for them while they're at the conference. You want this to be ongoing. You want this to be something that you envision breaking out into certain areas, their community, maybe different branches of service, maybe on base, maybe off base. Is that kind of what you're seeing?
Absolutely. And probably in ways that I don't even know yet. Each time I talk to people, there's like, hey, I know this one group of people that are doing this, or there's this one person that I served with that's doing that. So, again, it's a big umbrella of, a military creator that, again, I'm a believer that podcasting and digital, online presence and things like that are important tools or resources. And whether it's Facebook and Instagram right now or something later that, TikTok wasn't, like when I helped you, I don't even know if there was TikTok yet, right? I think if at all it was around, it was barely around, right? But those kind of platforms will come and go, and even
right.
We're on StreamYard right now. There's other, in the recent past, years ago we used to be able to come on and a thing called Blab, right? That company kind of came and went. So the way we do it and the tools and resources will somewhat change, but that's again what we want to create is a community of people that are kind of loosely already there, but we want to bring them all together in person as much as we can at times, but the once a year conference, but also in between, offering tools and resources.
And we're talking about individual veterans, but this could be something that you also doing for other veterans organizations who want to get the word out. So anybody in the veterans space. So let's talk about how they find out about being a part of your military show. What website do they go to? How do they find out more about it?
Yep, all the information. There's forums if someone wants to be a speaker. We're always looking for good speakers, not just for the upcoming one, but the ongoing, right? So we'll open it up at different times for people to speak. So we have a speaker submission form on our website. We have, if someone wants to sponsor or be involved in any way, there's a form they can fill out. It's on the website as well. So militarycreatorcon.com is their website. We're also all the social media, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. There's a Facebook group as well. So if you go and search on Facebook for Military Creator Con, we have a Facebook group there as well.
So on the website, does it show all the other links to the other sites and other social media platforms?
It does.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. So James, you spent 20 years in the Air Force, correct?
I did. I was in from 1995. I went in February 1995 and got out March of 2015.
And you've been a podcaster ever since.
Yep. So as I was getting out of the military, I discovered that anybody could do anything, kind of pick a niche and a thing and add podcasting as a tool to get the word out for it. So started a veteran business podcast in 2017. Also started a podcast network to have other shows on, to get the word out for other kind of niches and things in the military space. So really learned, and that's where I want to help people, like to go back to the military creator part. I didn't have any idea. I didn't really think I was creative at all at first. I say at first, because now that I kind of look at it in a different way, there was no such thing that I knew of as a creator economy coming out of the military. I barely used social media at all because of my top secret clearance, and barely had a smartphone, as I was getting out at that time. So, so that's what's good too, is I really personally didn't know a lot of people when I was in that was podcasting, but as soon as I got out and lately I've seen, that explode. There's people that are in the military in different branches and different niches or different things that they're doing podcasting. So, or just getting the word out or creating businesses around like very niched, like helping people get jobs from what they did in the military specifically to what they do on the out, whatever the translation is on the outside. So that's, even a creative way, right? Seeing something that's just not there at all and creating.
Do you find that by podcasting and being involved in the podcasting community that you've been able to help yourself in your post-military service?
Yeah, I think so. It's opened up just the relationships. It's opened up, the access you can get to people. I'm sure you see it even in the space that you're involved with. You get to know people and what they've done, and you learn things about people that you've known for a while that you might not know, that you just get on a thing like this and you're like, oh wow, like I didn't even know that, and you could have known them for a while, right? So
there you go.
But it's just, I love this medium, and it's crazy. Even when we met, right, because I've always kept saying, we're still, like, it feels like it's exploding, but we're still not there. It's still going to only become more. Like, people just didn't even know what a podcast used to be.
Right, exactly.
Very few people had access to it, but you knew it was going to be only a matter of time to where, it was going to be bigger. And then I'm excited about not just Military Creator Con, but we're a part of PodFest right now, this in 2025. I can't wait because that'll be the first podcast conference I'm around after the election. to look at how podcasting was so big and disruptive. I mean, I remember like this is what got me into it as well a little bit. Like I saw what was happening. I'm like, oh, yeah, this is gonna disrupt traditional media like big time. And it didn't matter even whether it's politics or other things. Even in sports, if you look at a Pat McAfee, you know, all those years ago, there wasn't many people just kind of creating their own thing.
Right.
You know, and he nobody would hire him, you know, when he got out. Like none of the major sports people would give him the time of day. And so he just created it himself, you doing what we're doing right now. So that's just exciting, like to see where it's gone. But, you know, I'm really looking, you know, forward to hearing people's perspectives and what's talked about for what happened in the election for like a Joe Rogan, right? He was the first one to do a 3-hour type format, and look how big on the election, right? One candidate chose to use that and one didn't based on that format. So it's just, so again, I feel it's still a little early, right? It has exploded. I think COVID helped quite a bit speed it up probably to some degree, but it's, you know, where it goes. Well, and then we haven't even talked about AI, right? So like that's a
whole nother one. So that's a whole
nother. I'm sorry, too high level.
So do you see this, what you're doing and what you're doing with podcasting and Creator Con, as a way to help veterans, you know, either be able to take themselves to the next level to create another career, or get themselves through something that they might be going through because of their military service? Is that what you see?
Absolutely, all of that. And I think even more than that, like things that we might not even know or see that'll, you know, if you think about being creative, there's things created that's like, oh wow, like that's never been done, right? If you go back to what I said about a smartphone, not very many years ago, that wasn't even a concept, right? So that had to be created in someone's mind, and like, okay, I think we can do it this way. And everybody's, or look at Elon Musk, right? Things that he's involved with, like, so you know, we used to have NASA, the space program, and then now we have, you know, someone like an Elon Musk
got everything
testing rocket stuff, right?
So you're be kind of like a Creator Con consultant, helping veterans make it to the next level.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have pretty much everything under one umbrella and roof for anything someone would need, tools and resources and community. But yeah, so that's what we're doing. Military Creator Con.
So James, one last time, what are the dates of your first Creator Con, and how do they find out about you? Where do they go?
Yep. And we've actually done it. This won't be the first year. Our first year that we did this was in 2020. And we got kind of lucky. I mean, it was just as COVID was sort of starting. So we had a full day of the first day of PodFest in 2020. But we're actually, the next one is in January of 2025. So January 15th, the night of the 15th, we have a kickoff event. I'm not looking at the time, but I think it's on the website, I believe. But it'll be around 7 p.m. I think 7 to 9. We'll have a kickoff event where everybody can get to know each other, and there'll be a kind of a sponsored party there at the hotel. And then all the sessions, we're gonna have some panels and some speakers from 8 o'clock, roughly 8 o'clock to 5 o'clock in the evening. And then, you know, if people, they can either purchase the Military Creator Con ticket and be part of just that, or they can also stay and everything related to PodFest. You know, there's networking events and parties, after parties, and that'll be, you know, kind of roll in after the Military Creator Con ends. You can stay and still participate that night. The night of the 16th into the 19th is sessions and things like that related to the podcast space and creative space as well.
James, one last time, what's the site?
MilitaryCreatorCon.com. Go there.
James, I love it. It's a great concept. It's a great way to help veterans. I want to thank you so much for not only doing your part to help veterans, but thank you for being on the show. I appreciate you.
Yep, thanks. And I also want to make sure everybody knows and to go back, like, you know, please follow us on all the, whatever your favorite channel is, all of them, hopefully. But if there's one that you're mostly on, you know, follow us at militarycreatorcon.com, or not com, but whatever, wherever, at Military Creator Con.
I love it. James, once again, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Have a great day. All
Thank
right.
Thank you, William.
Have a great night. You talk to you soon now.
Yep, appreciate it.
All right. Bye. Get big discounts at mypillow.com/WWFA. That's right. For the holidays, you can get Christmas gifts at mypillow.com/WWFA and get some big discounts. You'll be very happy that you did, and you'll be supporting my show. Thank you so much. With me today in this interview is yet another person who's out there helping veterans. And I say it very softly and easily like that because as you begin to hear the things that she talks about with her organization, you're going to become more and more intrigued on yet another way that we can help our veterans. And not only our veterans, but also those who are considering military service, because they need to know that when they go into the military and they get out, that they're going to have organizations that will help them, because they often hear, quite honestly, the nightmare stories of what veterans go through after military service. And this is something that I think people need to know more and more about. And with me today to discuss her organization is Judy Isaacson Elias. Did I say that right, Judy?
You said it right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. The name of your organization?
Heroes to Heroes.
I love it.
And, in so many ways, heroes have the power to help other heroes, and people have the power to help other people. And that's what we use, a combination of people to people and God to people. And what we found, we work with something a little bit that isn't discussed that much. It's called moral injury. And just to give you a brief definition, the best way to understand it, it's the shame and guilt brought home from war. And most people feel, our vets, they're soldiers. They go to war. We almost treat them like automatons. Go to war, just go, do whatever you have to do. War is about kill or be killed. There's nothing pretty about it. There's nothing, when a soldier's on the battlefield, they're not thinking politics. They're thinking, how do I save my life and how do I save my buddy's life? And that's the simplest way to look at it. So we send them out there, we prepare them intellectually, we prepare them physically, maybe a little bit emotionally, but we don't prepare them spiritually. And the average American has about an 8-year-old's understanding of their faith. They know the 10 Commandments, what's good, what's not good, but they don't know that gray area. What happens when you have to, quote unquote, transgress those commandments? Maybe for your job, like in the military, you have to do. And one of the things that we as people can help us understand those 10 Commandments, and people of faith, is understanding where they came from. Now, of course, they came from God, but using the real definition, we have translated something so horribly that we're causing pain. For lo tirzach means thou shalt not murder. The original Hebrew, the lo tirzach, thou shalt not murder. We've translated it to thou shalt not kill. Now, even in American jurisprudence, American law, which comes from the Bible, there's a difference between murdering and killing. There's a difference that's between manslaughter and murder. We don't explain that when a soldier is going to war, what does God want from us? Number one, God wants us to be alive for him.
Right.
He created us. So when you're being sent to war, you're being put in a situation like that, your job is to stay alive. And in that situation, it's absolutely okay to do that job.
And what's interesting as you say this, the other side feels like they're doing the same thing. We might think of an American soldier right now who was sent to, maybe they were sent to World War II, Vietnam, Korea, Afghanistan, Iraq, anywhere in the Middle East. and we send them there, and we think we're the good guys, they're the bad guys, and that's what we believe. And I'm not trying to rearrange that. I'm just thinking in general, for simplicity terms. And so the other side, though, they're thinking that they're being invaded, that they're doing the right thing by protecting themselves. So on the battlefield, who is really the right one in God's eyes? Who's really protected themselves? Or does God not discriminate? Does he say, you know what, you two were sent here by your Caesar, basically your government, pay Caesar first. God always, when Jesus always said, you pay what goes to Caesar, and what goes to God. But that, using that kind of explanation, that analogy rather, a soldier doesn't think about that when they're in a war, in a battle zone. So when they come home, many feel that, how'd you put it, that justifiable guilt, or that, how'd you put it earlier,
Yeah,
that
moral injury.
that moral injury. How
Right, and I
how do
also
you
think we're also, now keep in mind, we are not fighting people who think the way we do necessarily.
right?
We're not fighting Europe. We're not, in many ways, in many places we go, we're fighting a death cult. People who worship death, who feel that their death, if they were to die in battle, it's what their God wants. Okay, so it's two totally different things we're looking at. When we're fighting a godless people or people who don't believe in the Bible, it's a different, it's a different enemy. And I think as Westerners, it's very hard for us to look at that. And many of the wars going on right now are just the wars against death cults. And we are right. Okay. And I have to throw that out there. So, because I believe that we are right. We are fighting for the Bible. The war right now is about the Bible. Our election is about the Bible. So one of the things we can do now is really start talking about that, bringing that out there. What do we want our lives to look like? One of the things, the most important thing we work with the vets, is our values. What are your values? How do you identify your values? As parents, are we teaching children values? Or is the only value get into a top college, get an A? The most important values: God, family, faith, connection, being really good people, following our parents' tradition, history. All of that were the values I know I was brought up with, my kids were brought up with. But when I ask the average person, when I'm sitting down meeting someone for a cup of coffee for networking, and I go, well, what do you value? And it takes them a while to think about it.
So how did you, I want to talk about your organization specifically. I love that you're sharing with me and the values. And I agree with not only your values, and I agree with what you're saying exactly right now. And I also agree that, right now in the battlefield, we're right. We are fighting for a more justifiable cause for peace around the world, instead of the other side, which just believes that sending people to, their definition of hell is what's going to get them to heaven and their people to heaven, or their heaven rather. But I want to talk more about what gave you the idea to start Heroes to Heroes, and what exactly do you do?
Okay, so my father was a World War II vet, Second Day Normandy, Battle of the Bulge, liberated a concentration camp, and in many ways never came home. He saw his time in World War II, and he was in the thick of it, as probably the best time of his life. And he had a tough time finding himself. And I watched him throughout the years, and I always felt like I was missing half my dad. What was going on with him? And after he passed, I learned a lot more. I learned that, he felt most at home when he was with other veterans. And he was very involved in veterans organizations and helping disabled vets. And I kind of tucked that away. That was in 2001. 2009, I visited our soldiers at Walter Reed Army Medical Center when it was in DC. And what I saw as an American, as a mom, horrified me. I saw a lot of our soldiers that had come home and they just wanted to go back. They didn't really know what their next step was. I just couldn't understand it. I said I had to do something. I started volunteering at organizations. There are so many great organizations out there. At the same time, I saw a lot of partying and alcohol, and I'm going, this can't be good for wounded vets. Like, we need to do something more. Then I learned about the suicide rate, 22 a day, and I said, this is a national health crisis. This has to end. This is what I've got to do. I started studying suicide, digging deep into just research. And when you dig down deep, there are a couple of themes that just kept popping up: belonging and faith. And I said, that's what I have to look at. When I was 16 years old, I was going through a really rough time. I was going down a bad path, self-destruction. My parents sent me on a pilgrimage to Israel. When I put my hand on the Western Wall, my world changed. And I said, wow, I'm not alone. And I realized God was with me. Well, 2009, I said to myself, what if I started focusing on the faith aspect and the belonging aspect of life? And what if I took veterans on that spiritual journey to Israel, to the Holy Land? Doesn't matter what faith they are. You know, Christians and Jews, that's where it all began for us. What if I took them on that physical journey? Would it help them on their spiritual journey and help them heal?
So, your organization, you hear about the high suicide rates. So your way of reaching out to these veterans is say, hey, we're here, we're helping. Do you all connect, heroes, meaning the ones that might be in trouble, to other heroes that are on, let's just say, better foundation or better, I don't want to say stable ground, but I want to say they're in a better place and they are the hero that's able to help another hero. That's kind of what I would read into it there. And is that what you do? Your organization does, is connect them?
Well, it's a combination. We work with teams of five veterans, and they have a coach who is an alumnus of the program. So that coach has been through what they've been through, but they've gone through the 12-month. We have a 12-month curriculum, and it starts why I talked about values. It's based on values. And we help them understand their values. They meet twice a month. They have written work. They have assignments. They work very hard. They have one-on-one meetings with their coach. And in the 5th month of the program, they travel to Israel. They travel to the Holy Land. And most of them are Christians. About 98% are Christian faith. They get baptized in the Jordan River. They walk the Stations of the Cross. They walk wherever Jesus walked. It's about that reconnection. And during that time, they're learning about the Bible. They're learning about the context of the Bible. We use a lot of the Hebrew Bible and the Christian Bible, but they start to learn exactly what their faith means. What was said? Why was it said? What was the age that it was said? What was going on? And it starts to come alive for them. And a big challenge that they have is finding atonement, finding forgiveness. And our focus is finding that forgiveness. We have a lot of assignments, and one of the assignments is done while they're in Jerusalem. And it's after they've gotten baptized and they're given this, and they're told, write a letter to God. Now, if you haven't done it, I suggest you do it, and probably everyone should do it. Just write that letter. Dear God, what's going on in my mind? Where am I? What are my concerns? What are my positives? What are my negatives? The good, the bad, and the ugly. Really focused on what is that relationship about? What is God telling me? What do I need to tell God? And from there, from those questions, you start getting answers. Start to get clarity. What do I need to work on? How do I work on my relationship with God? How do I move it forward? What are the things that are stopping me from that relationship? So, and vets are in such a dark place, many of them, and they live. If you look behind me with the yellow, there's a big yellow painting
The red heart, yeah.
with a red heart. That was done by an Israeli soldier he was an Air Force pilot who was captured by the Syrians. And this was back in, I believe, 73, maybe 67. And he was in their prison, their dungeon for 6 months. And he found that painting helps him depict those scenes and work. He said the whole time he was in captivity, he thought about his wife, and in the heart are pictures of he and his wife.
So it's amazing that he made it out of that Syrian prison.
Yes, Henry Kissinger actually got him out of that prison. And but he reconnected with life, he reconnected with faith, and it helped him just get through a lot of the negative stuff he was feeling. He was feeling alone. He was feeling abandoned.
So how do people qualify to be a part of your organization that helps veterans? How do you all find them? How do they find you? Are their qualifications?
Yes.
We talked about suicides. There's 17 to 22 people die every day, which is an astounding number.
It's a crisis.
That's almost at the rate of fentanyl, which probably some of them are a result of fentanyl. Because I guess many face drug addictions. How do you all find them? How do they find you? Are there requirements?
Yes. Okay. So the best way to find us is go to our website, heroes2heroes.org. That's HeroesToHeroes.org. And the information is on the site. There's also an application. We work with combat veterans of any conflict. I mean, we even had, when we started 11 years ago, we had someone from the war in Korea, amazingly enough.
Wow.
But we've had, Vietnam vets, Desert Storm. As long as you were deployed to a war theater, you qualify. And that you have not yet traveled to Israel, because this is a first time. This is part of our, we have those limits.
Right.
And there are reasons for it, because we've had people who have, and they kind of ruin it for the others. I'll put it like straight out there. Okay. But they need to commit to working with their team for a minimum of 12 months. Now, what happens with these teams, they become a family and they start working together. And so I have coaches whose teams completed the program 6 months ago, but they still meet once a month just to all be together. They still have their team chat, but they've got to commit to 2 meetings a month to doing written work.
Go ahead.
No, it's a big commitment. We do have a fee. We have a $500 fee because we want people to commit. And we know the difference between that commitment and not having that commitment is huge.
So they pay you, or y'all have maybe donors that pay for them, or sponsors that pay for them?
They can, our cost is over $10,000 a veteran. So $9,500 of the cost is paid by donors. What we find is we want the veterans to commit to it because they've got to put in the work. And when they don't make that financial commitment, 2 months into it, they don't want to do the assignment. They don't want, and this makes all the difference in the world. We work with the veterans who cannot, have trouble with the $500.
Right.
We do have scholarships, but we're very, very strict on that. We want that commitment. It is so important for their own head. And if all of us, when we get something for free, we're like, okay, yeah, I'll go. I'm not going to show up. I'm tired. I don't want to go to that event. I don't want to go to that meeting.
Right.
We need that commitment. And the other vets who they're working with on their team, they need them to have that commitment. So we do help everyone who needs it. But we do want them to have skin in this game. It's so important. Our major donor is Jewish National Fund. They have been amazing to us for the past, 8 years. And we visit many of their sites in Israel. They do a lot of heritage sites in Israel. So they have been very supportive of us.
It's interesting how much you tie Israel and that visit to Israel into your organization. But I do want to go back to how many people do you think you feel like you've prevented from committing suicide in your organization, to any of the statistics that you can point to and how people can help?
Okay, we have over 450 American veterans have gone through our program. And I always hesitate to say this, but I believe that God wants me to tell you that none have committed suicide to date.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, that's awesome.
There's a real commitment here, and they commit to each other. And there is one point where they get together and they promise each other that their lives will not end that way. So there's a real commitment. There's a commitment to, to their fellow vets and to God. This is
It's
not
almost
how
like
this
your
is meant.
organization helps them create a commitment in their civilian life that they had in their military life. In your military life, you're committing to your fellow troop, your fellow soldiers, the people in your troop and your that you're with in service. You're committing to them that you got each other's back. You're going to save each other's life and you're not going to let each other down. And now you in your organization, Heroes to Heroes, it's kind of like you recreated that bond and that commitment in their civilian life.
Yes. And, it's about honor and it's about faith. And so people can help us in so many ways. We are doing a country concert here in Boca Raton, Florida in January with a country artist. That should be a lot of fun at the end of January. But, people can sponsor a vet for the program.
Is it the $500 or the $9,500?
It's to sponsor a vet. It's $7,500.
Okay.
And so, but every gift is important, and it's just shows our vets that you care. We are a very lean organization, and our goal, we have a long waiting list. So our goal is to get to everyone on the list and make sure we have the resources to do it. We train our coaches. We are looking for people to help us who have experience training teachers.
It's amazing.
Yeah, so there are so many things that can be done, so many things that we can use help with, everything from website to social media to you name it. But we definitely can use your help, and I just appreciate everything and everyone who reaches out. And again, our website is heroes2heroes.org, heroestoheroes.org. We also have our 12-month curriculum that is available to schools, to churches, to community centers that I'm happy to share with people. It really focuses on building people's self-esteem through connecting with values and living a life of values and living a life of purpose.
I tell you what, Judy, that you are absolutely amazing, and I can't thank you enough for being on my doing my show with me today, and I really appreciate you. We got about another minute. Any final words? I know you've had some great final words here, but is there anything else that we're forgetting, but to help some veterans?
Just with all the noise in this world, please remember our veterans. Please, please, because I know they get mixed up, they get pushed aside. We have soldiers that are out there fighting now, and pray for them, love them, just take care of them, take care of your country, and thank you all for listening.
Judy, thank you so much. Hang on one second. I'll get right back to you. In the meantime, I want to tell my listeners, please, if you know any veterans that would fit into the help that this organization, Heroes to Heroes, can benefit from, they can benefit from, please go to their website, heroes2heroes.org, reach out to them, but also pass this interview on to another veteran. Maybe they don't need help, but maybe they know another veteran that needs help. Please, I'd be honored and grateful if you did. I'm sure Heroes to Heroes would too. Judy, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
And everybody else, please tune in for the next interview coming up next. Visit my website, williamwallace.net, to get some freedom merchandise. Check out some of my affiliates, but most importantly, check out my freedom merchandise store and buy yourself a t-shirt, a hat, a mug as another way to support my show. Thank you so much for continuing to watch my interviews with military veterans organizations. I've said this before, I'll say it one more time, but a little bit differently, because I want you to think differently about each organization that I bring on. My purpose for doing this is that there are a lot of different military veterans organizations around the country that are helping our veterans. And this is yet another one that I think is well worth a listen, which is Military Veterans Advocacy Group. And with me right now is Commander John Wells. He's retired from the United States Navy. Thank you so much for being on there. I appreciate it today, John. How are you?
Doing fine, sir. Thank you for having me.
Well, no, you're absolutely welcome. The pleasure is mine, because I want us to reach as many veterans as we can to help them. John, could you please tell us about what your organization does?
Sure. We litigate, legislate, and educate. And what does that mean? That means we go to Congress and beat up members of Congress and the U.S. Senate for veterans benefits. For example, we were active in getting herbicide benefits for many places, included into the PACT Act, which was signed by President Biden in August of 2022. We litigate by suing the VA secretary, and we've done that several times. I tell him he's my favorite defendant, in order to get benefits for military vets. For example, in 2019, we won a case called Procopio versus Wilkie that resulted in the expansion of herbicide benefits to about 90,000 veterans that served in the bays, harbors, and territorial sea of South Vietnam. We educate through different types of outreaches, including podcasts like this. But as well, we do continuing legal education for attorneys on veterans law. We're working on a program to do tribal outreach for tribal attorneys on veterans law. We also sponsor what we call Veterans Get Outside Day, a national day where we ask all veterans to get outside, get away from the TV, and just enjoy Mother Nature.
Well, this is interesting. It's kind of like you all don't do any one specific thing. You really kind of find out, it's almost like you find out where the need is, and then you advocate for that. But of course, the biggest need is in benefits. Is that correct?
That's correct. There's been a lot of improvements in VA health system. For the most part, it no longer gives you a second chance to die for your country. But if you can't get access to that system, it can be the best system in the world. It doesn't matter. So our emphasis now is on the veterans benefit system. One of the things that we're looking hard at is the VA appeals, the Board of Veterans Appeals, which we found to be pretty unfriendly to veterans and to really be an inefficient use of resources. There's too many times a veteran has to apply and wait sometimes 5 or 10 years to get benefits. I think the longest was a Marine Sergeant Major, combat veteran, who took 46 years to get his benefits.
This is criminal. I hear about all this all the time when I do these interviews about how our veterans are treated after service, and I'm finding that they get treated worse after service than that oftentimes the actual war zone that they were in, or the horrible conditions they might have been in while they were in service, and they're getting treated worse afterwards, and that's criminal. My question that comes to my mind is, do you find that it's bureaucracy that's treating them bad? Because I just heard from you just now is that when they're in the military, they're dealing with their generals and their commanders and their captains, and they're dealing with other members of the service. But when they get out of the military, they're dealing with bureaucrats. They're dealing with people who are not in the military, or for the most part, are not in the military. They're dealing with elected officials that are in charge of voting in budgets that have, budgets for them, or they're dealing with bureaucrats that are the ones handling all the red tape in the VA or the other administrations. And is that a reason for the inefficiency? Am I on something there?
Well, that's part of it. And there are veterans that work within the VA system, and there are veterans that try to help veterans within the VA system, and even non-veterans. Some good people in there, but the problem is at the top. It's at the GS-14 senior executive service level where we run into the problem, and they are hard and fast bureaucrats, worried more about their budget, their next step increase, their next promotion, than they are about the individual veterans. You try to show these folks the error of their ways, and they just don't want to listen to it. I mean, we've got pictures, for example, of herbicide being dug up on Okinawa, and they say, well, gee, we still got no evidence that it's there. Well, yes, you do. You have visual evidence, and they just kind of ignore it. It's a real problem, and the VA is probably the worst bureaucracy that I've ever seen. I mean, it makes the IRS look efficient, and makes the IRS look helpful sometimes. They seem to go out of their way to make sure that they don't communicate with the individual veteran. That's where we come in and try to force Congress, or we'll go through the courts, to provide benefits for these folks. There's probably hundreds of thousands of people out there that have earned their benefits, and the VA just will not recognize it.
So do you all help individual veterans? Do they come to you and say, hey, I need this, and then you all help them directly? Are you all working with, veterans as a whole? Or I'm kind of trying to make that connection. Although you've kind of alluded to it, I'm trying for the listener to be more to shine the light on the process. So let's say a veteran that needs some help says, hey, I need this help. Do they come to you, and then you all say, okay, that's a specific thing, or that is something we can help more veterans with that problem, and here's what we do, it's legislation? Or are there groups of veterans coming to you, or are you all not looking for individual veterans for the ideas? You all are just aware of the issues and are as a whole trying to help veterans. How is it working? Is it a funnel? Is it more of an umbrella, or how does it work?
I suppose an umbrella would be the better description. We concentrate on the macro, the issues that are affecting hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of veterans. That doesn't mean we will turn individual veterans away. We will provide some counseling and put them in the right direction. We're not doing individual cases, haven't for a number of years, but what we will do is put them in touch with one of our member attorneys who will actually take their case on an appeal, or if it's an initial claim, we'll tell them what they need to do to get that initial claim done. But the majority of our emphasis is in dealing with legislation or seeking judicial review of VA regulations to ensure that we cover the maximum amount of veterans.
This is unbelievable. So how do people help your organization? So it sounds to me like you're not working with specific veterans, Although if one comes to you with an idea, you all use that single issue to help. Again, going back to that umbrella to help many veterans. But how can people help your organization? How can people get more involved with you guys? How are you all raising money? What are you all doing to help the most amount of veterans as possible?
Well, there's a lot of ways they can help. We have a project on our website called Bill of the Week. You can go on there, check the Bill of the Week, and it will allow you to send a pre-written email, which you can modify to your members of Congress and U.S. Senate. Okay, there's financially, we do have a number of raffles. We have one that's drawings on November 3rd for a Henry repeating rifle with the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence on the stock. And we do those twice a year. We have other fundraisers, and you can just go on and make a donation. Financially is where we hurt. Now, we don't take a salary. I got a very small unpaid staff of 2 people. But myself and the rest of the board, those of us that go out and go to Congress and so on and so forth, we don't take a salary. But the problem is those park benches in Washington get pretty cold in the wintertime. So, we need some sort of a hotel, and we try to stay at the 3.5 to 4-star level. We don't go to the 5-star. We fly Southwest or whatever other cheap airline we can get, and try to expend the as little money as possible. Oftentimes, my law office will pay for the food bill, for example, or for Ubers, or we'll pay for it out of our own pocket. But, I do have a payroll to meet. I do have transportation costs. For example, we're going to an event in February, which is going to involve every state director of Veterans Affairs. It costs us $3,000 for a booth there. And, other places have other expenses. When our Veterans Get Outside Day, the last one was at Newport, Rhode Island. Beautiful area, beautiful day until a storm came in from the Atlantic Ocean, but you can't help that.
Right.
But it cost us about $25,000. So, these are all real expenses that we have to meet. And if we can't meet them, we're either going to cut back on our services or we'll have to go out of business.
So I love not only your lean operation, I love the fact that you're operating in a streamlined method to be able to help veterans as efficiently but affordably as possible. I absolutely love the fact that you're not operating as a bureaucracy, that the same bureaucracy that you're fighting against. I love the fact on how you are doing this. So basically, a single veteran with an issue that you might not be aware of can come to you and you go, wow, we didn't know that was going on. You all might do some research, find out that it's affecting more, or in the event that you're paying attention to the budgets and how people are helped in the VA system. I don't want to use this term, but for a simple analogy, it's almost like you guys are a lobbyist for veterans. And because you're operating kind of like a lobbyist, you're finding what the issues are. You're going and talking to politicians who are in charge of the money or the laws, and you're going to them and saying, "Hey, look, put this on your radar. We need to do something. And by the way, we have an idea what needs to be done about it." Is that kind of a okay way to I guess explain it?
Well, that's I think that captures it. But we are not lobbyists. Lobbyists get paid. We don't. We consider ourselves advocates. And we have checked with Congress to see if we had to register as lobbyists. And because we're not getting paid to go out and represent another group, for example, we don't have to register. So we're advocates, not lobbyists. Lobbyists is kind of a dirty word, I think, anyhow. So
that's why I say, excuse me for the analogy, but it was just kind of a way to help people understand. So
Sure.
So you're not a lobbyist, you're an advocatist.
Exactly.
I kind of made that word up as I spit it out, kind of thing. But basically, I love the fact that you're not trying to steer a decision. I mean, ultimately, that's what you want done. If it guides policy or money in the direction of your veterans, but you basically try to say, basically, as an advocate, you're just shining the light on the problem and you're telling people, hey, here's where the problem is, Mr. Congressman or whoever, or Mr. Bureaucrat, and here's what we need, kind of
Pretty
thing.
much.
Is there anything that you can point to that you guys have been able to do recently? And I know we got to wrap it up here in just a minute, but is there anything that you can point to that maybe that any problems that you all have solved recently that might come to mind for some people?
Well, we're pushing hard and hopefully going to get a committee hearing next month on a hyperbaric oxygen treatment for traumatic brain injury, which the VA doesn't seem to believe in, but everybody else does. And this is a non-opioid treatment. The VA likes opioids. They're in bed with Big Pharma. You may have heard that before. But this is a non-opioid treatment. We've been able to garner a bunch of co-sponsors. It's got through the subcommittee level, and we're hoping to get a committee hearing on it in the House in November. That leaves us with the Senate, and we've negotiated with some of the folks in the Senate to pick the bill up when it comes there and do what they call a hotline or unanimous consent, which will basically give all senators a period of time, usually a couple of days, to either say yay or nay. If they say nay, it does kill the bill. But most of those times, in bills like this, most of the time they all say yay. So we have hopes that we'll get it through the end of this session. If not, we'll be back next year with that and the rest of our legislative agenda. We were successful in getting a congressional gold medal for Commander Everett Alvarez, USN retired, and Everett Alvarez was the first prisoner of war held by the North Vietnamese. He was shot down in August of 1964 over North Vietnam. As a result, he was doing a strike post Gulf of Tonkin incident, and he set the standard for the rest of the POWs to follow. So he's a good man. He's a member of our organization, and that has passed the House and has now got 67 senators supporting it in the Senate. So that's more than enough to pass it.
How many years in a POW camp and he's still alive?
Well, he went in 64, got out in 73, so a better part of 9 years.
Wow.
Still alive, still spry in his 80s, and just one heck of a good guy. I've been able to meet him a couple of times, and it's really an honor to meet him.
Can you imagine the torture that he went through, and you guys are getting him his medal that he justly deserves? Do you all have any fundraisers, anything coming up, any calls to action that you want to get out there that people will can help you with, or any ways they can be involved with you guys? How can they support your organization with any events coming up or otherwise?
Well, I'm not sure when you're going to publish. November 3rd will be the drawing for our rifle raffle. After that, we'll be doing an end of the year fundraiser on Facebook, and you can follow us on Facebook and make a donation there, or go directly to our website. We also have one item for sale. It's called Beyond the Territorial Sea, and it's very limited. The only one it's going to affect is people that were in the Blue Water Navy that were not covered by the Procopio decision. But just feel free to jump on our website. It's only a $35 membership fee. Right now we have a special on until the end of the year, $30, and join us or make a donation. Anything helps.
Commander John Wells, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And
thank you for having me.
Well, I want to thank you for what you're doing for all veterans. And I want to thank the audience for not only listening, but I also want to thank you in advance for please sharing not only this interview, but sharing the podcast that this is a part of as a way to be able to help other veterans. Because let's face it, if we don't show our civilian population that are thinking about military service that they're going to get help after military service, then we're not helping them much either at all, unless we're showing them our support. And that's what this interview does. Help other veterans by sharing. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time, and see you on the next interview.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
If you're tired of being tracked by your cell phone companies and Google, switch your cell phone to Unplugged by going to unplugged.com/WWFA, and you won't be tracked. You'll find messaging systems that Replace your cell phone with Unplugged, the Up phone, by going to unplugged.com/WWFA. You can replace your cell phone, VPN, antivirus, and messenger with a unified personal privacy system where you won't get tracked, get off the grid, as I'll say, but just find a way to be able to know that privacy on your cell phone is now in your hands with the Unplugged phone by going to unplugged.com/WWFA. And then you go to Patriot Mobile and you have them activate your Unplugged phone or the Up phone with Patriot Mobile, where you're going to get great rates and the same or better coverage because they use all of the carrier lines. And don't forget that promo code WWFA to get your discounts and your special surprises. Thank you so much.